Hello students, today we are going to learn semantic analysis. Now, so far we have studied Viterbi algorithm, PCFG, where we have done part of speech tagging and with which we tried to remove the ambiguity. Once you do with this, that was related to lexical and removing lexical ambiguity. Here we will think of removing ambiguity with respect to semantics of the language. When we say syntax, it concerns with the structure, and when we say semantics, it concerns with the meaning of the sentence. So, semantic is often assumed to be compositional. For example, when we say 3 green boxes, now the meaning of particular word or a sentence becomes composition of these 3 words, that is 3 green boxes. And if we combine the meaning of this, then we will come to know that there are 3 green boxes. But sometimes it happens when we make use of idioms that compositional semantics gets violated. Let's say when we say that he still has all his marbles. So when we say this, it may not be like we are talking about marbles, but maybe the meaning is he has not become senile or lost his memory yet. So the meaning of sentence comes from the meaning of its phrases. But there are certain constraints between words or phrases which frequently affect the meaning. When we say the pig grunted, whether we are talking about pig or whether we are talking about some person is contradictory. So, when we are saying or when we want to interpret the meaning of a sentence, we have to see the relationship between objects, entities, or other parts of the sentence. Like for example, when we are saying you, him, that time this you and him doesn't have meaning if you don't know about the previous or the reference of those phrases, about whom we are talking about. Even when a person is speaking about, let's say if it is speaking like the door is open, now when it is saying that, what do you mean or what is the intent of a speaker has to be understood. For example, like the door is open, whether the speaker want to tell or complaining about that why the door is open, or whether he wants to tell that door is open, please close it. So that can be the meaning or the intent of speaker of speaking a particular sentence. So there could be various facets of meaning. Now, once we know all these things to be considered while removing the semantic and ambiguity, we should be able to represent the sentence into context independent form or the representation of a context independent meaning, that is nothing but called as a logical form of the sentence. The process of mapping a sentence to its logical form is called semantic interpretation. And the process of mapping the logical form to the final knowledge representation, we will denote it as KR language, is called as contextual interpretation. This can be more clear with this diagram. We have studied the grammar, that is nothing but the syntactic analysis, that given a grammar or given a CFG, we have different productions, and given a sentence, how we are going to parse it or analyze that sentence. But that is just a syntactic analysis. If you want to understand the meaning of that sentence, that time we have to have a semantic interpretation of that particular sentence. Like the ball is red. Now we know that the is article, ball is noun, is verb, and red is an adjective. But then we have to represent it in a logical form. How we can show that? That is like the B1 is a ball which is red. Now this doesn't have any context. Just we have represented it in a context independent representation. We call it as logical form, and then with which red ball we were talking about. If we add a context with it, it becomes a contextual interpretation. So that is nothing but the final representation, that is KR, that is knowledge representation, that the red ball 73. This is the way how the semantic analysis or logical form intermediate representation looks like. Now we'll see some of the terms used for this logical form or semantics. One is indexical term. Indexical terms. The terms that are defined by a context. So recently I have said that when you are saying you, him, it, then about whom you are talking about is not clear. So the pronouns like I and you are indexical because their interpretation depends on the context of who is speaking and listening. So when I am saying I means who? Like Dr. Dipti is speaking. So the context who is speaking, and you means who? That is the students of Cummins IT, NLP of elective NLP. So that's why the context is important. So the I and you are called as indexical terms. Even there are various aspects of a language, that is interpretation of tense and determining the scope of quantifiers depends, which is on the context of the particular sentence or the whatever the speaker is speaking. And this is also, there is one concept that this type of logical form can't be uniquely determined. So logical form could be understood without the context, that is, it is possible to consider meaning in the absence of context. So the representation of meaning in the absence of context is termed as logical form. We have seen this type of structure, it represents the same. So you have syntactic analysis, logical form, then contextual interpretation. Here also there can be, the context can be of different phases. This is the initial discourse situation where you have ball, person, and who owns it. But then we have added one more information, that is what is the color of the ball. So the red ball the person is owning. So this is like a updated discourse situation. Now this is something which we will be revising, that is word senses and ambiguity. We have also discussed this thing in ambiguity resolution section. So we know that words may have more than one sense. Now for example, when you are saying ball, it could mean a social event or a spherical toy. So even when we are saying a go is a verb or this is a word, then this go will have and has various synonyms, like it is move, depart, pass, vanish, reach, extend, and set out. So many of these highlight a different sense of the verb go. So one of the senses of go will be identical to one of the senses of depart. Same thing, there are various words which have various senses. Like the word take has actually 57 senses. So until and unless the particular word which is being used is not, if the sense of that word is not clear, we say that it has a word sense ambiguity. So, a particular word can be mapped to different senses or organized into set of broad classes of objects which we can classify in the word. So this the set of different classes of object in a representation is called its ontology. Now, for example, the classes who could be substance, that is like a physical objects, quantity, that is like some like numbers, quality, that is bright, red, what kind of quality, even relation is there, place, time, position, state, action, affection. So these are the various classes in which we can classify the word senses, and we can establish the different ontology among the word and its different senses or classes. Other classes such as events, ideas, concepts and plans are also possible. So, two of the most influential classes that we make use of are actions and events. Now, like all objects in the ontology, actions and events can be referred to by pronouns. So let's say the sentence, the we lifted the box, it was hard work. So the pronoun it refers to the action of lifting the box. We laughed and sang at the football game. Now here we laughed and sang relates to the situation of a football game. So this sentence describes set of activities performed at a particular time and location, which is described as a situation. So this can be a situation is kind of a class for that particular sentence or a sense. This was related to the lexical ambiguity. What do you mean by lexical ambiguity? How the particular word is used as a syntax, or you can say whether you are going to call it as a like it relates to what, like that. That is a lexicon, how you are going to classify that particular word. Next type of ambiguity could be the semantic ambiguity, where a word has different meanings. Like kid seems to be ambiguous between a baby goat and a human child. So they are semantically ambiguous, and if you don't know the context, how you will going to classify the when I'm saying kid to with of whom I'm talking about. Even semantic ambiguity can relate to the verb senses, like if the sentence is I ran last year and George did too. But in this case, whether I am actually running, or if I have taken a part in a particular competition and where George has also participated. Like we both were candidates in an election, or that we both ran some race. But it would be difficult to read it as a mixture of two. So the way the ran verb is used has a ambiguity, and that is a semantic ambiguity. So run is an ambiguous sense. At the logical form layer, words are quite often ambiguous, as it may take context to decide the intended sense. Like lexical ambiguity, semantic ambiguity, there could be a referential ambiguity, like the same John is angry with Jim, he bites him. Now who bites? That he relates to whom? That is the reference. Same thing, structural ambiguity, happy cats and dogs live on the farm. So this is a syntactic structure which is ambiguous. Every man loves a woman. We have taken this example. So this is whether a particular person loves that particular a particular woman, or every man loves a particular woman, or every man loves all women. Okay, so that is a semantic structure, that or even there can be a mixture of ambiguity based on these different types. So here our important task is of semantic interpretation is to utilize constraints such as to help reduce the number of possible senses for each word. So we should be able to interpret the particular sentence or group of words or phrases in such a way that it will reduce the senses of for used for possible senses used for each word. So here comes the logical form language. Now this is the way it is how we can represent in a particular structured manner a given sentence to semantically interpret the particular sentence. So this section defines a formal language of logical forms resembling FOPC, that is first order predicate calculus. So there are terms. Terms are nothing but constants or expressions that describe objects, like we have Fido1, Jack1. We'll take one example. Then we may have predicates. Predicates are nothing but constants or expressions that describe relations or properties. Each predicate has an associated number of arguments. They can be a single argument, a binary argument, ternary argument, or n-ary arguments. Even there is a particular thing like a propositions. A predicate followed by appropriate number of arguments are called as prepositions. Now let's take an example. So as I said that the logical form, basic logical form language in which you can combine this element to form meanings for more complex expressions. So there are the word senses which will serve as the atoms or constants of the representation. These constants can be classified by the type of things they describe. Like constant that describe objects in the world, including abstract objects, events or situation, we call them as terms. Constant that describe relations and properties are called as predicates. Then a proposition in the language is formed from a predicate followed by an appropriate number of terms to serve as its arguments. So for example, if we have a sentence, Fido is a dog, would be constructed from the term Fido1 to represent Fido and a predicate constant, that is dog1, and could be written as in a logical form as dog1 Fido1. Now what do I mean by this? That dog whose name is Fido1, so we are representing it as a variables to the particular part of a sentence. Predicates can be of different types based on the arguments they are taking. Like predicates that take a single argument are called unary predicates or properties. Those take two arguments such as loves. Now when you are saying loves, a particular person is loving someone else. So you require two arguments. So we call it as binary predicates. Those that take n arguments are called as n-ary predicates. The proposition corresponding to the sentence, let's say Sue loves Jack, would involve a binary predicate, and how we can represent it? So loves will be represented by loves1 as a variable and would be written as loves1 who, Sue and Jack. So Sue will be represented by as Sue1 and Jack will be represented by Jack1. So this is the logical form of this sentence, Sue loves Jack. Different word classes in English correspond to different types of constants, as I said earlier. So proper names such as Jack have word senses that are called as terms, and common nouns such as dog have word senses that are unary predicates. Even verbs such as run, love and put can have more than two predicates, so we call them as n-ary predicates, where n depends on how many terms the verb subcategorizes for. Now, in this logical form language, You have logical operators also to represent complex proposition construction. For example, the not is a logical operator which allows you to construct a proposition that says that some proposition is not true. The proposition corresponding to the sentence Sue does not love Jack. If this is the sentence, how you will represent it? So you have a sentence loves one, Sue one, Jack one, and we want to invert it. So we'll write it as not. So this is a logical operator working in the logical form language. Even there are connective propositions available. So let's say when we are saying Jack loves Sue or Jack loves Mary. So here that could be represented with this type of form where we have loves one, Jack one, Sue one, loves one, Jack one, Mary one, and you have either or is possible. So we have written it as a or one, that is a connective to show the logical form of the sentence. So this is about how we are going to resolve the semantic ambiguity using our word says disambiguation with the use of logical form language. Another different available options of logical form language we will be discussing in next lecture. Thank you.